Ah, you're back. I suppose you want another story. Luckily I have one. This story is called Wake Up. It was normal for me to go to my friend Luke's place for a sleepover when I was a kid. We used to play games on the Wii and watch YouTube videos all day. This weekend I was having a blast, and as night drew closer to me, Luke decided to get ready for bed. Luke's room was kind of creepy because of the nightlight. It would cast a weird shadow on the wall that kind of looked like a man clinging to the corner of the room. Luke's mom showed me that it was just the closet door handle, so it was kind of like a coat on the chair looking like a person sort of thing. As I drifted to slumber, I awoke to Luke's mom waking me up soon after. "Your dad is here early. Pick up your things." I was upset and admittedly bratty. I didn't want to go early, but I guessed that it was all right. I packed my things and got in the car. It was a cold, dark night. Very dim street lights lit up the road. On the car ride home, I was still very tired, and so I fell asleep again. As I woke up, I found myself back at Luke's house. That's strange, I said to myself. So, was that a dream, or am I dreaming now? I shrugged it off and continued my sleepover with Luke as normal. Nighttime came once more, and I went to bed as normal. This time, I woke up to a similar situation. Only this time things were different. I wonder where this one's going. It was the same, but everything felt surreal. Luke's mom woke me up, same as last time, but her voice was almost muffled, and everything was gray, like static. I walked out and got in the car again, but when I did, the car sped up quick. I heard screams coming from behind the car as my dad hastily looked over the seat and said to me, "You need to wake up. You hear me? It's not real." I jolted back and woke up confused. I was frightened and hadn't left my mind that morning. Luke and I had breakfast, and then when we were eating our cereal, I told Luke about my dream and how my dad was saying weird stuff. "What did he say?" Luke said. "Oh, something about waking up and like how it's not real or something," I said jokingly. But Luke didn't laugh. He gave me a dead stare. I was eating my cereal, and when I looked up at Luke, his stare turned intimidating, almost like there was malice behind his eyes. I could feel the room getting darker and darker as the background noise faded into static. "You can't leave," he said. "You can't, you can't, you can't, you can't, you can't!" I was scared for my life as I saw his limbs contorting, his face growing pale, and his eyes becoming black, vacant sockets. I rushed away from the table as fast as I could, and for the front door. I opened it, and as I looked back, I saw what used to be Luke crawling towards me on all fours, extremely fast, while screaming, "You can't!" I slammed the door right before it got to me, and that's when I felt my head jerk upwards. I woke up. It was the last day of my sleepover. I remember it being so surreal as a kid. After I left Luke's house, I never had sleepovers at his house anymore because of the nightmares. Over the years, it sort of just became a passing memory. Just recently I told Luke about it when he was over, and he had a good laugh. That's all it was. Just a funny story. Until a night ago. When I was going to sleep, I saw it. A man-shaped shadow in the corner of the room, clinging to the wall. The same one as when I was a kid. Watching me. Waiting. It found me. I quite liked that one. I couldn't tell where it was going to begin with. And it remained mostly unpredictable as it went. What did you think of this one? Let me know in the comments beneath. What? Not enough? You want another one? Fine, not like I have anything else to do in here. This story is called, I Think My Grandmother is Dead, but No One Else Seems to Notice. Quite the title. I'm shaking as I write this. I've thought about calling the police, but I haven't figured out if I'm losing my mind or if my entire family has lost theirs. Maybe I will wake up soon and this will all have been a terrible nightmare. For context, I am an only child and the only grandchild of my last living grandmother. A couple weeks ago, while at work, I received a phone call from my mother informing me that my grandmother had taken a fall in her kitchen. My mom said that my Uncle Lou was with her and already in an ambulance. Paramedics suspected she had a fractured hip and somehow sliced open her foot. She was sedated due to the pain but was otherwise responsive and fine. I immediately asked if I should meet them at the hospital, but my mom said, No, don't leave work. I'll update you once I know more. So I waited. I love my grandmother, but she's probably the most stubborn person I've ever met. She has a home remedy for just about everything and absolutely loathes seeing doctors. So I'm sure she won't be fun to deal with while confined to a hospital bed. It doesn't help that Grandma absolutely refuses to use a walker or cane despite her debilitating age, and will not leave her house to live in a nursing home. 6 months ago, Uncle Lou moved in with her to help out. Not that he's said it out loud, but I've always suspected that he did it more for the free rent. Who could blame him? With nothing else to do, I sat at work, distracted, waiting for the phone call from my mother with news. That call didn't come, though, until long after I'd gotten home and was brushing my teeth to go to bed. Apparently, Grandma was awake now and doing fine. She would need surgery for the broken hip, but they were able to get the laceration on her foot stitched up and bandaged. I asked to speak to her, so Mom held the phone up to Grandma's ear and I told her that I loved her and would love to come see her once she was discharged. The hospital only allowed 2 visitors and Mom and Lou refused to leave her side. Hi, honey, Grandma said through the receiver. I'm okay, but they won't let me leave. My mom's voice in the background exasperatedly explained that she needs surgery. So they tell me, Grandma huffed. I'm fine, Anna. Come see me when I get home and we can play some cards. I smiled, promised to visit, and said goodbye. She was discharged the following week and sent home. The hip replacement was successful, but she developed a nasty infection on her foot. Between the 2 ailments, Grandma was confined to her bed. Once she was comfortable at home, Mom gave me the okay to come over, and so I made some chicken dumpling soup and sat in a chair beside her while my mother spoon-fed it into Grandma's mouth. There you go, Mom, my mother encouraged as Grandma sipped the broth off the spoon. I could tell Grandma was wildly out of it. I had been expecting an earful about having to use a bedpan, but due to the cocktail of narcotics and antibiotics, she merely grumbled in annoyance at Mom and Lou's constant hovering. For what it was, she seemed in good spirits, if not exceptionally tired. After about 2 hours and 2 small soup mishaps, I got up to leave. Mom saw me to the door. "She'll be fine, Anna," my mother reassured. "Lou and I are taking care of everything. Don't worry." I left feeling optimistic that my grandmother would be back to her Spitfire self relatively soon. But that visit with the soup was over 2 weeks ago now. Not long after, Mom took a leave of absence at work and holed up in Grandma's house with Uncle Lou. Each time I called, she gave me a new excuse as to why I really shouldn't visit. Risk of infection, flu season, fatigue, bowel issues, you name it. At first, I accepted these excuses at face value. They seemed legitimate. But I can't even get Mom to put Grandma on the phone anymore. I made more soup yesterday and dropped it off, but Uncle Lou met me right at the door and said that it wasn't a good time, but he'd make sure that she got it. "And we always let her know when you call," he assured. I noticed that there was some intense floral and yet antiseptic scents coming from the doorway. "Your mom won't stop cleaning," he explained. Frustrated, I called and complained to my father on the way home, but he defended my mother, like always. "She's always been like this," he reminded me. "They are extremely close, your mother and grandmother. And Lou, well, this just seems like classic Lou. You know, this is the first time they've really had to face the reality of their mother's age. They're just protective and scared to lose her." I figured he was right. I mean, it makes sense. I hung up the phone, feeling a little less unsettled. On Grandma's 89th birthday, however, I decided I wasn't going to take no for an answer. I would go over there and I would give her the present I purchased for her, a new thriller by her favorite author. I arrived at the house in late afternoon and noticed all the blinds were closed. Being that it was a warm spring day, it was common for Grandma to have all the windows open and drapes open as well, letting in both sunlight and fresh air. I knocked twice on the front door, but no one came. I knocked again. No answer. I tried the knob, but the door was locked. I paused for a moment, considering that maybe no one was home. Maybe Grandma had a follow-up appointment with a surgeon. But both cars were in the driveway, so I knocked again, louder. The door opened just a crack, and a foul odor filtered out, nearly choking me. "Mom?" I exclaimed when her face appeared on the other side of the door. "What's that smell?" Seeing it was only me, she opened the door another inch. "The infection's gotten worse, but we're monitoring it." Should I call an ambulance?" I asked in panic, pulled out my cell phone from my pocket. No, Anna, no." She quickly reassured me. "We have it handled. I stopped by and picked up refills of her antibiotics earlier, and we've been on the phone with her surgeon." Relieved, I took in a deep breath, but the smell was so overpowering. "Mom, that smell is ungodly. Why don't you open the windows?" "We tried," she said, but she got so cold. Mom shrugged and didn't move. "Can I come in?" I asked, attempting to look over her shoulder into the dim house. I really didn't want to go inside due to the smell, but if Grandma wasn't doing well, I wanted to see her. "I don't think that's a good idea," she murmured. Where's Uncle Lou?" Upstairs in his room, her voice was reassuring, but the smell turned my insides. Surely a smell like that could only mean bad things. I pushed the door open and Mom protested. Just come back another day when she's feeling better. I promise you that Lou and I have this under control. In the kitchen, the odor was strong, but mixed with the smell of bleach. I couldn't tell if that made it better or worse. At least let me see her and give her a birthday present. Mom looked down to see the wrapped gift in my hands, and she sighed. Of course, she said. Gosh, I'm sorry. We've just been so preoccupied. I'm sure she'll love it. At that moment, Uncle Lou came trotting down the stairs and smiled at me. Anna, Mom will be so happy that you're here. I looked at my mother incredulously. She was staring at her feet now. What was going on? Uncle Lou continued down the hall, and I could hear him as he opened the door to Grandma's bedroom. Mom, you have a visitor for your birthday. The smell of the house was searing my nostrils, but I wasn't going to let Grandma know that I was repulsed by it. Mom led me down the hallway to Grandma's bedroom, instructing me along the way to put on a brave face. I plastered a smile across my face as I turned the corner into the room. Grandma was sitting in the bed, and Uncle Lou had taken a seat on the mattress beside her. His body obscured most of the view, but I could see her feet where they stuck out from under the quilt. The toes on her right foot were black with crumbling toenails and festering sores. The sheets under her heel were stained yellow from dried pus. Lou was prattling on to her, but Grandma didn't respond. Isn't it nice for Anna to come see you on your birthday, Mom? Goodness knows you've been through a lot this month. She has a present for you. He turned expectantly to me, his profile moving just enough to reveal Grandma's form, where she sat up against the pillows. I'll try to explain the horror I witnessed, but I know the words will never do it justice. My stomach flipped, and I froze. Grandma's dull, lifeless eyes stared straight ahead at the wall, unblinking and glazed over. Her eyelids were crusty, and her jaw hung widely agape with sagging lips, revealing a gray fuzz that had begun to coat her tongue. Uncle Lou patted her leg while Mom hastily pulled the quilt down to cover her feet. I barely heard as Lou explained how cold she'd been feeling from the infection. He picked up a tissue from the box on the nightstand and began dabbing at the corner of her mouth. She doesn't talk much due to the heavy sedation she's under, he explained. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the pallid gray skin of Grandma's face, and how it was now starting to sag in ways that had nothing to do with her age. Flies buzzed overhead, and Mom picked up a fly swatter and began swatting wildly. Goddamn flies, she mumbled. They won't leave her alone. One of the flies circles Grandma's face and landed in her open maw. Uncle Lou merely shooed it away. She's been sleeping sitting up for the past few weeks or so, Mom explained, patting Grandma's now covered feet. The pain was just too much for her to lay down. We tried, but her muscles spasmed, and she can't move. My knees were shaking, and I could all but back out of the room, reaching and pressing against the opposite wall. Vomit crept up in the back of my throat. It's okay, Anna, Uncle Lou said from inside the room. I know it's hard to see her in such a state, but that's why your mom and I are here to take care of her. We agreed we wouldn't let her go back to the hospital. They've already messed up so much of her care. You saw her foot and what the doctors did to it. How the hospital could let gangrene go unnoticed is beyond me, Mom agreed. We've been sponge bathing her regularly, airing her feet and changing the bandages frequently. It seems to be helping. Right, Mom? she asked, squeezing Grandma's ankle. I tried to put my head between my knees, but the smell was so overpowering. Mom stepped out into the hallway and touched my shoulder. I recoiled. "Oh, Anna, I am sorry. This is why I didn't want you to come over. The gangrene smell is hard to tolerate, and I didn't want you to have to see her while she's like this." Not knowing what else to do, I pulled her into the kitchen and said in a most steady voice, "Mom, why didn't you tell me that Grandma had passed?" Mom's face didn't change. She just looked at me. "What are you talking about, Anna? She's right there. You saw her." "Yes, I did see her," I agreed, pointing at the bedroom down the hall where the smell was so strong that I was close to passing out. "Grandma's dead. Mom, you know that, right? She has very obviously passed away." Mom's eyebrows narrowed and she pursed her lips. "Listen, Anna, I get that this is hard for you. Hell, it's hard for all of us. But if you're saying this just to hurt me, it's not going to work. Stop being a brat. Your father's on his way over with a birthday cake." The room began to spin. I needed to get out of this house immediately. I tossed the present on the kitchen table and grabbed my bag. Fleeing out the kitchen door into my car, I took a few deep breaths of fresh air. I could see my mom at the large bay window looking out at me. She looked angry and upset, but quickly turned and walked away. I pounded the steering wheel, yelling obscenities. Other than an open casket funeral, I'd never seen a dead body before, let alone one that had clearly been dead for weeks. But Grandma was undoubtedly dead, and my mother and uncle were staying in that house with her corpse, washing it, feeding it, and talking to it like nothing had changed. I threw open the car door and vomited all over Grandma's neglected shrubs. By the time the dry heaves kicked in, Dad's car pulled into the driveway. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, as he opened the car door, seeing me kneeling in the grass. "Are you all right? Your mom called me and told me that you were quite upset." "Dad, she's dead," I choked out, pointing at the house. "Who's dead?" he asked, his voice very worried. "Grandma," I shouted. "Grandma is dead. Mom and Lou, they're just sitting in there with her body." "Anna, calm down. Your mother mentioned that you were in hysterics and talking nonsense." "Talking nonsense? What are you saying?" I choked out. "Go, look, Dad. I swear you'll see. She's dead, and Mom and Lou have lost their minds." "All right," he said, holding up his arms in surrender. "Let me grab the cake and I'll go inside and see what's going on. You just stay here, okay?" I collapsed back into the front seat of my car. I blasted the AC in an attempt to flush the smell of rotten flesh out of my nose. It felt like an hour before the door opened again, and Dad calmly walked over to my driver's side window. "Hi, Anna Bear," he said cautiously. "Did you see her, Dad? You saw her, right?" "Shh, Anna," he said, placing his hand on my shoulder. "Calm down. Yes, I saw her. And she's very sick, but otherwise alive. Your Mom and Lou are taking good care of her." "What?" I nearly screamed. "Come inside," Dad said, going for the door handle. I quickly locked the car. Dad threw up his hands in frustration. "Just come inside, Anna. Uncle Lou is getting Grandma into her wheelchair, and we're all going to have some cake." He'd glanced up at the front window of the house. Ah, see? There she is. I glanced up to see my grandmother's face in the window, her absolutely dead eyes looking blankly out over the front yard. Rigor mortis had made her body so that it couldn't sit in a wheelchair just right. Even from a distance and through a pane of glass, I could see the death in her eyes and the shocking gape of her mouth. I gagged. Her face looked even more twisted now, as if she'd taken her last breath in a tremendous amount of pain. But what made me scream in abject terror was that her cloudy pupils seemed to turn ever so slightly towards me. I threw the car into drive and sped out of that driveway, ignoring the shouts of my father and Uncle Lou bursting out the front door. I didn't dare go home, as I was sure that my father would follow. Were they right? Was she actually alive? It's not like I checked for a pulse or air in her lungs before I took off. I didn't touch her at all. Could it be me, then? Was I the one having a nervous breakdown? I don't know what to do now. I'm absolutely terrified. Worst of all, when I close my eyes, all I can ever see is my grandmother's rotting face. Well, took a little bit to get going, but once it was there, quite chilling. What did you think of this story? Let me know in the comments beneath. Oh, and subscribe already. What? Another one? I thought that one was pretty good, but if you're not satisfied as of yet, I guess I have one more. This one, quite the title. This one is called "The Government Now Requires CHERYL to Cheat with Multiple Partners in the Dating and Relationship Scene." Believe it or not, this is a brief story. The title has at least 10% of it. Not actually, but I'm being hilarious. The government now requires CHERYL to cheat with multiple partners in the dating and relationship scene. She has no choice in it, but she does get paid for it, which is the only good thing from all of this. To be paid to date. The reason for this is for something unusual and unique. For as long as CHERYL has been dating, each of her partners have had dark things in their closet which they had kept away from the rest of the world. When CHERYL was a teenager, her very first date and boyfriend was with a seemingly nice boy. It was later found out that her first boyfriend had enjoyed torturing animals and wearing their skin. He would then go out pretending to be that animal that he had killed. Oh, this is twisting. When CHERYL was in her early 20s, she went out with a guy who seemed all put together. He had a nice job and had a wonderful place to live. It was later found out that he was a cannibal. He was caught out by his employees when he tried eating the cleaner. Throughout CHERYL's teens and early 20s, all of her boyfriends were either killers, cannibals, thieves, or physical abusers of some nature. Then, someone who worked in the prison system had noticed that every one of CHERYL's boyfriends were now in the very same prison. The guard notified his superiors, who notified their superiors, and then the government got wind of it somehow. CHERYL seemed to only attract the worst, and the government had thought to themselves that the more CHERYL attracts these types of people, the more they can put them away and protect society. CHERYL was visited by agents working with the Secret Service, and after a great deal of talk, she decided to just go with it. So she did as she usually did. She'd go out on dates with a seemingly nice person. But in the end, after some time, she'd end up finding out that they've done something absolutely horrific. It's CHERYL's weird power, in a way. Then the government asked CHERYL to up her dating by cheating so she could go out with more than one person with a dark secret, but at the same time. So CHERYL started cheating, and every partner she chose to date ended up being found out to have something about them, like having human bones in their garden, or something meaty down the drains. CHERYL doesn't know why she attracts these types of guys, and she wished that she could go out with someone normal, just a decent person. The government, though, have found a use for this very unusual, coincidental trait. CHERYL decided to go out with women, even, but the same thing would happen. Even those women she went on dates with would have dark secrets, which would land them in prison. Then CHERYL started going out with herself, and the government are now frightened of CHERYL. Well, a rather short story, and even still that ending seemed very abrupt. How does one date themselves? And why does it have to be cheating to date more than one? But you wanted a third one. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments beneath. As for me, I'm done telling stories for today. I suppose I should be thankful, but I do hope that you drop by again for more Frail Blaze tales.